Imagine, just for a second, the ultimate safety net.
Okay.
You're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, just kind of spiraling about the future.
Oh, yeah, doing that classic 3 a.m. doom spiral.
Exactly, the doom spiral. You're lying there thinking, well, what if I lose my job? Or what if I get sick and I physically cannot work anymore?
Yeah.
What if I just get too old to keep up with this, relentless, exhausting grind we call the modern economy?
Right, which is a totally valid fear for basically everyone right now.
Totally. Now, I want you to imagine a place where if literally any of those things happen, you have a guaranteed home and a community just waiting to take care of you.
Wow.
No questions asked, no massive stack of paperwork to prove you're, worthy of assistance. Just a permanent sanctuary.
I mean, it is a deeply comforting thought, especially in a world where security feels, well, increasingly conditional. We are so profoundly accustomed to this idea that our personal worth and, honestly, our physical safety is directly tied to our economic output.
Yeah, 100%.
If you stop producing, you lose your safety net.
That's the whole, hustle culture anxiety. It's built entirely on that fear. You stop moving, you sink.
Exactly.
But what if there was an actual written blueprint for a community that promises to handle your birth, your aging, your illness, and your death?
Which brings us to today's source material.
Right. So today's deep dive is focusing on this really fascinating document from 2014. It's by an author named Feng, and it's a translated text titled The Second Home, which is now known as New Oasis for Life is Your Home.
And I gotta say, it is a remarkable piece of social engineering. It's almost disguised as a manifesto, but it outlines a communal society designed specifically for a group of people the text refers to as Chanyuan Celestials.
Right, Chanyuan Celestials, which
Yeah.
sounds kind of sci-fi.
It does, yeah. But just to be clear for those listening, a Chanyuan Celestial is really just the text term for a member of this specific intentional community. It basically refers to someone who has committed to this lifestyle. They're aiming to transcend ordinary, individualistic habits, right, to live in a harmonious, almost utopian alignment with a higher natural order.
And what makes this document so compelling to me is how it tries to solve this massive tension between radical equality and just basic human nature.
Yes.
It proposes this society offering unconditional care, but it attempts to balance that incredibly generous offer with an intensely strict, self-policed work ethic.
Right, because you can't have one without the other.
Exactly. And the document completely upends everything we generally accept about how organizations operate, especially starting with the concept of authority. Because to understand how a community promises to take care of you forever, we first have to figure out who is actually running the show.
Right.
And according to the Feng's text, well, nobody is. There is no boss. There's no one in a supreme position at all.
Yeah, traditional hierarchies are entirely dismantled in this blueprint. It's fascinating. The text explicitly states that the spiritual guide and the branch directors of the community are simply the servants of all members.
Servants.
Yes, they're strictly forbidden from acting as the controllers of people's lives.
Yeah, I hear modern CEOs use that kind of language constantly now.
Oh, absolutely.
The whole servant leadership management trend where the founder of a tech startup posts online about how they actually work for their employees.
Right, the humble brag LinkedIn posts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this text takes it to an absolute literal extreme because, it is one thing for a CEO to call themselves a servant while they still hold the power to fire you and take away your health insurance.
Sure.
But how does an organization actually function when leadership claims literally zero supreme authority? Even if this is like a corporate co-op or an employee-owned business, there is still a board of directors. There's some mechanism for voting people out. So who decides who takes out the trash here?
That is exactly where the text requires this massive psychological pivot.
Yeah.
You have to realize this isn't a traditional organization. It is an ideological community built on total psychological ownership.
Okay. Unpack that a bit.
So by removing the concept of a boss and framing the founders purely as servants, the text attempts to foster this environment where every single Chanyuan Celestial feels the full weight of the community's survival.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, ownership in the second home isn't defined by, shares of stock or a legal deed to a property. Ownership is defined purely by contribution.
Right. The text actually specifies that anyone who has devoted their wisdom or their sweat or their money to the building of the second home is considered the owner.
And that psychological shift from a traditional structure is just profound. Think about it. When you have a boss, you are essentially just a tenant in their system.
Yeah, renting your job, basically.
Right. If the roof leaks, You complain to the landlord to fix it, but when you are the absolute owner, if the roof leaks, you have to grab a hammer. The community can only survive if every single member internalizes that tenant-to-owner shift.
And the document doesn't frame this ownership as just a practical survival mechanism either, which is interesting. It kind of elevates it.
It definitely does.
The stated goal is to create a place where members can climb to the highest realms of life and life. And I want to point out, the text intentionally capitalizes that second word, life.
Yeah, that stylistic choice is super important. It separates biological existence like small life, which is the day-to-day routine of eating, sleeping, surviving from spiritual existence, the capital L life.
Interesting.
It basically suggests that the mundane work of building the home is intimately connected to a member's spiritual elevation. So the dirt under their fingernails from farming or building, it isn't just chores. It is the physical manifestation of their spiritual practice.
But I mean, let's be real here. A philosophy of servant leadership and spiritual chores is incredibly easy to preach when the coffers are full, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Promising a utopia where everyone is an equal owner sounds wonderful when the sun is shining and the harvest is plentiful. But the real test of any intentional community is what happens when the money actually runs out.
And the thing is, the text actually provides us with a very specific real-world test case to answer that exact question. The author doesn't shy away from the community's darkest moments at all.
Yeah, there is this incredible anecdote in the text about a Chanyuan celestial who had been working outside the community, out in, quote, the society.
Right, doing a normal, secular job.
Yeah, and this person reaches out to the spiritual guide and basically says, I hate my current job out here. I want to quit. Can I come back to the community? And if you don't accept me, I guess I'll just go back to my secular family.
And the spiritual guide's response is an unconditional yes.
Which is wild.
Right. The celestial is allowed to return. But the reasoning behind that acceptance is the crucial part. The guide says yes, specifically because this individual had, in the past, diligently contributed to the building of the second home. They had invested their sweat.
But, and this is the crazy part, the guide doesn't just welcome them back to some lush paradise. The text includes this brutal caveat.
It's very bleak.
Very bleak. The guide openly admits that their formerly beautiful home had disappeared. The community is struggling to survive. They are destitute, dealing with extreme poverty and hardship.
It is a really stark, honest admission of failure on a material level. The idyllic physical utopia they built, it's just gone.
Right.
Yet, the existential invitation remains open. The guide tells this returning celestial that no matter how difficult the financial situation becomes, as long as the second home physically exists, it remains their home. They have the absolute right and eligibility to return based on those past contributions.
And the text then outlines what returning actually looks like in that state of poverty. And it mandates this intense, radical solidarity.
Yes, radical is the right word.
It says if there's no vacant room, they will just squeeze together and share a room. If there's literally only one bowl of rice left, everyone gets a bite. They make a commitment to, quote, live and die together.
That phrase, live and die together, that really anchors the entire philosophy. It completely strips away the illusion that utopia is simply about comfort or luxury.
Okay, but I have to push back on the appeal of this, just practically speaking. Because sharing a single bowl of rice sounds incredibly noble and romantic in a philosophical document. But if you are actually starving, it is terrifying.
Right, it's not a fun camping trip anymore.
No. It's like the ultimate blood pact between roommates. If the beautiful home is gone and everyone is destitute, wouldn't a rational person just go back to their secular family like they threatened to? How is this shared misery actually being framed as a selling point for the community?
Well, consider the alternative. In standard society, if you hit rock bottom, if you lose your job, your home, your health, you often hit that bottom entirely alone.
That's true.
The safety nets we rely on in the modern world are full of holes. What this community offers in that exact moment isn't material wealth. It's the total eradication of isolation.
Wow, eradication of isolation.
Exactly. Knowing that a group of people will literally share their last bite of food with you, choosing to starve alongside you rather than cast you out, that provides a totally different kind of security.
It is the ultimate anti-abandonment guarantee.
Yes. And that shared hardship binds a group way tighter than shared wealth ever could. Think about it. When things are rich and plentiful, it is very easy for a community to fracture over minor disagreements.
Oh, sure. People fighting over who gets the better view from their bedroom.
Exactly. But when there is only one bowl of rice, you are entirely dependent on the person sitting next to you. The poverty acts as a pressure cooker that just forces them to rely on one another.
And the text leans heavily into this anti-abandonment idea. It states, we should never refuse anyone who has dedicated his heart and soul to the second home. And it loops back to the lack of hierarchy, too, noting that there should never be someone in a supreme position, including the spiritual guide.
Right.
The guide gets a single bite of that rice, just like everyone else. There are no special emergency rations for leadership.
Because if the guy took 2 bites of rice while the members took 1, the entire psychological architecture we discussed earlier would instantly collapse. The servant leadership model only holds weight if the leaders suffer equally alongside the members.
Right. Now, this level of unconditional one bite of rice support sounds like an absolute dream for anyone exhausted by the isolation of the modern world.
Oh, absolutely.
But this unconditional care has a very conditional entry. It's not a free-for-all. You cannot just walk in off the street because you are tired of the rat race. The text lays out a massive barrier to entry.
Yeah, the absolute rule of the community is totally uncompromising. The text states unequivocally that anyone who has not devoted anything to the second home, whether that's sweat, wisdom, or money, is completely disqualified from living there.
It explicitly says you cannot harbor the thought of trying to get things on the cheap or, enjoying the fruits of others' labor. Basically, if you didn't help build the house, you do not get to sleep in it.
This is their manifestation of the law of reciprocity. And it is really vital to understand the difference between capitalist reciprocity and the communal reciprocity outlined here.
Okay, how so?
Well, in standard society, reciprocity is transactional, right? I pay you money, you give me a good or a service, and our relationship ends. But in this text, reciprocity is existential. If you give your effort to the community, you earn lifelong existential security. To receive, you must give. But the beauty of this transaction, at least according to Swifeng, is its absolute permanence.
Meaning, if you paid into it in the past, you can cash out that security whenever you need it.
Yes.
The text actually lists incredibly specific scenarios. It says, when you get old, when you lose your job, when you feel helpless, when you suffer a deadly disease and cannot physically work anymore, you just show up.
You don't have to submit an application to a committee or prove that your disease is severe enough to warrant care.
Right, because you are an owner. You don't have permission to enter a house that you built.
Exactly.
The text says, quote, there are brothers and sisters you have been giving a hand to. They should take care of you in return. So the initial barrier to entry is brutally high. You must labor and sacrifice up front. But once you have paid that premium, the coverage is lifelong.
And this is where the entire system seems like it should just collapse under its own weight, right?
Yeah, totally. Because if there are no bosses, no supreme leaders, no HR departments, and everyone is an equal owner, who actually enforces the barrier to entry?
Right.
If someone shows up and tries to eat the communal rice, but they never actually put in any sweat equity, who kicks them out? Who is checking the receipts?
The text answers that question with perhaps the most radical concept in the entire document. Because there are no traditional judges, no police or managers within this community, the enforcement mechanism must be entirely internal. Members are instructed to set up a, quote, moral court in their conscience.
A moral court in your conscience. I love that phrasing. It is like a self-checkout aisle for your soul.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. And just like a self-checkout aisle at a grocery store, it relies entirely on an honor system. But unlike a grocery store, there are no cameras watching you from the ceiling.
Right, but relying on a self-checkout aisle for your soul sounds incredibly daunting.
Oh, it is.
The text says members have to lawsuit and judge yourself. You literally have to act as your own prosecutor, your own defense attorney, and your own judge.
Yeah.
So is this meant to be the ultimate freedom because nobody is bossing you around? Or is it an incredibly heavy psychological burden? Like if I am living there and I accidentally skip my chores or, I don't know, take a slightly bigger bite of that one bowl of rice, do I have to put myself on trial in my own head?
It is an immense psychological burden, but it is the absolute crux of the community's survival. Think about it. Without an external authority figure to hand down punishments, the system only works if every individual fully internalizes the laws of the community.
Right.
The text states, what we pursue is fair and reasonable, so we ourselves must be fair and reasonable first. Grow your own fruit and enjoy the reward.
Grow your own fruit and enjoy the reward.
Yeah.
That takes personal accountability to a level that most of us in the outside society never really have to face.
Absolutely. We rely on laws, police, HR departments, broad social norms to tell us when we've crossed a line.
Right. We just wait for someone else to blow the whistle.
Exactly. Here, if you cross a line, the only person who can hold you accountable is the voice in your head.
But how does that even function practically in a small group setting?
Well, the internal moral court is heavily reinforced by the external reality of intense communal dependency. In a group where everyone is sharing a single bowl of rice, a freeloader is incredibly visible. You simply cannot hide your lack of contribution.
Yeah, that makes sense. Everyone would notice.
Right, and if individuals stop holding their own moral trials, the community rots from the inside out. The people who haven't contributed will start consuming the resources of those who have, resentment will build, and that radical solidarity will fracture. So the moral court isn't just a quaint spiritual exercise. It is the load-bearing pillar of their entire societal architecture.
So it is a utopia, but it's a utopia that requires you to be relentlessly, exhaustingly self-aware at all times.
Basically.
You are free from external bosses, but you are subjected to the strictest boss imaginable, which is your own conscience.
Because when you remove the safety net of external rules, you are left with nothing but your own integrity to keep the community from collapsing.
Wow. All right, let's pull all of these threads together. What Su Feng's text outlines is a blueprint for what might be the most intense, uncompromising safety net ever conceived.
Without a doubt.
The second home offers an absolute cradle-to-grave sanctuary from life's worst storms. Aging, illness, unemployment, devastating poverty. The community promises to shield you from all of it. They will share their last bite of food with you.
Oh.
But they will only do that if you have already paid your premium in full. You have to pour your sweat, your wisdom, or your wealth into the foundation of that home first.
It is the promise of unconditional care, permanently unlocked by conditional entry.
Exactly. So I want to turn this inward for a moment to you listening to this deep dive right now. Just think about the networks you rely on in your own life. Do you have a community that would squeeze into a single room with you and share their last bowl of rice if everything fell apart tomorrow?
That's a heavy crush.
It is. And maybe the much harder question to face is, have you paid enough into the moral court of your own friendships, your own family, and your own safety nets to truly earn that kind of unconditional care? Do we sometimes expect the fruits of a supportive community without actually having watered the tree ourselves?
That is such a challenging reflection for anyone living in a modern, hyper-individualized society.
Yeah, it really is.
And it brings up a final, provocative dilemma that isn't explicitly resolved in the text, but honestly hangs over everything we have discussed today.
What's that?
Well, this entire philosophy relies heavily on a transactional past, right? You gave back then, and therefore you can receive forever. Like, the celestial who left to work in society is welcomed back because of what they built yesterday.
Right, they're living off their past sweat equity.
Exactly. But what happens to a community built on this model as time marches on? If the founders, the ones who bled, sweat, and gave their money to build the original second home, if they age, get sick, and eventually pass away, what happens to the next generation?
Oh, wow.
Can a utopian society survive by coasting on the sweat equity of its past? Or must every new generation be forced to face their own crisis, lose their own beautiful home, and struggle in poverty just to truly earn their place in the moral court?
So if nobody new is forced to add string to the safety net, does it eventually just unravel?
Precisely.
That is an incredible amount to chew on, especially when you realize that in the world of human connection and community, you cannot just look at a spreadsheet to see if your safety net is broken. You have to actually step into the muddy waters of human relationships and judge it for yourself.